Daniel had always been fascinated by ancient civilizations. Since childhood, he had read books about lost cities and buried temples, imagining himself as the one who would one day uncover their hidden truths. Now, standing in the hot sun of southern Mexico, he felt closer than ever to that dream. The jungle was thick around him, the air heavy with the smell of earth and plants. In front of him rose a massive stone structure, covered in moss and vines. Locals called it the Pyramid of Death. They spoke of it in whispers, warning outsiders never to go near. Daniel had listened to their warnings but could not ignore the pull he felt. Something about this pyramid seemed different. The villagers had told him stories of people who entered and never returned. They believed the pyramid was cursed, guarded by spirits of the dead. Daniel, however, believed there was another explanation. The Mayans were great builders and thinkers, and sometimes myths were simply ways to protect secrets too valuable to reveal. Daniel's team of 3 assistants stood behind him, staring nervously at the pyramid. Luis, the eldest, shook his head. "Señor Daniel, this place is dangerous. People do not come here for a reason. The stories are not just legends." Daniel gave a calm smile. "I understand your fear, Luis. But history is waiting inside. If no one dares to enter, we may lose knowledge that has been buried for centuries." The younger assistant, Miguel, looked torn between fear and curiosity. What if the stories are true? What if something inside is not meant to be touched? Daniel rested a hand on the cool stone of the pyramid. It felt solid, ancient, yet strangely alive beneath his fingers. Every mystery must be studied. That is why we are here. Reluctantly, the team followed him to a hidden stairway he had discovered days earlier. Covered by vines, the entrance was almost invisible, as if the jungle itself wanted to hide it. With careful movements, they cleared the plants away until a narrow dark opening appeared. A cold wind drifted out, carrying the smell of stone and something metallic, though none of them could explain why. They lit their lanterns and stepped inside. The air grew cooler as they moved deeper. The walls were covered with carvings, but they were unlike any Daniel had seen before. Instead of the familiar Mayan symbols, these carvings had sharp lines, perfect circles, and patterns that reminded him of machinery. The light from his lantern reflected strangely against them, as though the walls were made not just of stone but of some hidden material beneath. Miguel touched one of the carvings and pulled back quickly. "It feels smooth. Not like rock. More like glass or metal." Daniel leaned in, brushing his hand gently across the design. It was true. These were not normal carvings. They looked almost like circuits, as if the pyramid itself was a machine. As they continued, the passage grew wider until it opened into a vast chamber. The ceiling was so high their lanterns could not reach it. Strange pillars stood in neat rows, each one carved with glowing symbols that faintly pulsed with light. The glow was soft, yet it filled the room with an eerie atmosphere, as though the pyramid was waking up after centuries of silence. Luis whispered a prayer under his breath. "We should not be here. This is not human work." Daniel's heart raced, but his voice remained steady. "It is human work, Luis. Perhaps guided by something more, but human hands built this pyramid. We just need to understand why." They walked carefully between the pillars. Every step echoed, as if the chamber itself was listening. At the far end, Daniel spotted what looked like a sealed stone door. Strange markings ran across its surface, spiraling inward to form a pattern that resembled an eye. "This door hides something important," Daniel said quietly. "I can feel it." The team set their equipment down and began examining the carvings. Daniel noticed that pressing certain symbols made the stone vibrate slightly, as though it recognized the touch. He tried different combinations until the pattern on the door shifted. The spiral slowly began to turn. The sound was deep and heavy, like the grinding of stone mixed with the hum of hidden machinery. Dust rained from the ceiling as the door slid open, revealing another passage behind it. A wave of cold air rushed out, stronger this time, carrying with it the faint smell of rust and ozone. Daniel's lantern flickered, but the light steadied again. His assistants stepped back, fear written across their faces. "Señor, please," Luis pleaded. "No more. This is not for us." Daniel looked at the dark passage ahead. His instincts told him that he was standing on the edge of something far greater than he had ever imagined. The stories of curses and death might have been warnings, but not against spirits. They were warnings against something else, something powerful and hidden. He turned to his team. "I will go forward. You may wait here if you wish. But I cannot turn back now." Miguel hesitated, then stepped forward beside him. "If you go, I go. We cannot let you face this alone." Luis sighed deeply, muttering words of protection under his breath. Finally, he nodded. "Then may the gods help us all." With that, Daniel led them into the new passage. The darkness swallowed their lantern light, and the air grew heavy with a presence they could not explain. None of them spoke, but all of them felt the same truth: something inside the pyramid was awake, and it was watching them. The new passage was narrow, with walls that seemed to press closer the deeper they walked. Their lanterns cast long shadows that twisted across the strange carvings. Daniel ran his fingers along the walls as they moved. The markings were not random decorations. They formed patterns, flowing like rivers of light when touched. Miguel whispered, "These symbols, they do not look like Mayan. They are too sharp, too perfect. How could people carve this without tools of metal?" Daniel nodded but kept moving. He was more certain than ever that what they were seeing did not belong only to human hands. The lines were smooth, as if made by heat or light, not by chisels. The air inside the passage carried a faint vibration, almost like the quiet hum of a hidden machine. The tunnel opened into another chamber, smaller than the first, but filled with even stranger objects. In the center stood a tall stone pillar covered in glowing markings. Around it lay broken fragments of statues, each one half human and half something else. Their faces looked almost Mayan, but their eyes were larger, their limbs stretched in unnatural ways, as if sculptors had tried to capture beings they had once seen. Luis stopped at the entrance and shook his head firmly. "This is wrong. These are not our ancestors. These are monsters." Daniel stepped closer to the pillar. The glow of the markings grew brighter as he approached. He placed his hand on the surface, and suddenly the whole chamber vibrated. The light spread through the walls like veins, connecting to other hidden lines across the room. A low rumble echoed through the stone. Miguel dropped his lantern in surprise, but Daniel stood firm. The pillar responded to his touch, shifting its glow into a sequence of moving patterns. The markings formed circles within circles, like a message trying to be read. "It is a system," Daniel said softly. "Like writing, but not Mayan. Perhaps a code. Perhaps a machine." Before he could study further, the ground trembled. A crack split open in the wall, and from it stepped a figure unlike any they had seen. It was tall, its body made of stone and metal fused together, like a statue that had come alive. Its eyes glowed with the same faint light as the carvings. Luis stumbled backward in fear. "A guardian. The pyramid has a guardian." The figure raised its arm. A deep humming filled the chamber, and the air grew heavy. Dust fell from the ceiling as the ground shook again. The guardian did not rush toward them but stood still, as though waiting for something. Daniel quickly examined the glowing pillar. He noticed the patterns had shifted into a spiral that pulsed in rhythm with the guardian's light. It was connected to the figure, perhaps even controlling it. "Do not move," Daniel whispered. "It is watching us, but it has not attacked. It is waiting for the right action." Miguel whispered back, "Then what do we do? If we run, it will follow. If we fight, we cannot win." Daniel pressed his hand against the markings again. He tried different sequences, touching the symbols in patterns he had observed earlier. The Guardian's light flickered, its body shuddering as though confused. Luis gasped. "You are controlling it?" "Not controlling," Daniel replied quickly. "More like calming. It responds to these symbols." He pressed another sequence. The pillar's spiral glowed brighter, and the Guardian lowered its arm. Slowly, it stepped back into the crack it had come from. The wall sealed itself shut behind it, leaving the chamber silent once more. The three men stood breathing heavily, their nerves on edge. Miguel bent to pick up his lantern, his hands shaking. "Señor, this is not a temple. This is not even human. What are we walking into?" Daniel stared at the now quiet pillar. His mind raced with questions. Who had built this place? Why had they left guardians behind? And why did the markings respond to him, as if recognizing him? He looked at his team. "We are walking into something far older than we believed. The Mayans built above this place, yes, but they did not create it. They tried to hide it." Luis crossed his arms tightly, trying to steady himself. "And perhaps they hid it for a reason. To keep it away from the world." Daniel turned his lantern toward the far wall, where another sealed passage waited. Unlike the first, this one was covered entirely in symbols, arranged like a great doorway. It pulsed faintly, as if alive. "We have to go further," Daniel said. "This is only the beginning." Miguel looked at him with wide eyes. "Further? After what we just saw?" Daniel nodded firmly. "Yes. Whatever is buried here is not a curse. It is knowledge. If the Mayans feared it, it was because they did not understand it. We have a chance to learn the truth." Luis muttered under his breath, but he followed as Daniel stepped toward the sealed doorway. The symbols seemed to shift when the lantern light touched them, like ripples in water. Daniel reached out, his heart pounding with both fear and excitement. The moment his hand touched the door, the entire chamber shook violently. Dust poured from the ceiling, and the glowing lines flared brighter than before. The doorway began to split open, stone sliding back to reveal a staircase leading even deeper into the earth. A rush of cold air spilled out, filled with the scent of metal and something ancient. It was the breath of a place that had not seen visitors for centuries. Daniel stared down into the darkness of the new passage. He knew there was no turning back now. Whatever secrets the pyramid guarded were waiting below, and he was determined to find them. The staircase seemed endless as Daniel and his team descended deeper into the pyramid. Their lanterns barely lit the steps, and the air grew colder with each step they took. The walls were smooth, unlike normal stone, as if carved by something far more advanced than simple tools. A faint vibration hummed through the floor, as though the pyramid itself was alive. Miguel's voice echoed nervously. "Señor Daniel, we should not go further. This place feels wrong. I feel eyes on us." Daniel slowed but did not stop. He felt it too, a presence, something unseen yet always there. But instead of fear, it filled him with determination. Whatever is here has been waiting for centuries. If it wanted to harm us, we would already be gone. We must see what lies below. When they reached the bottom, the stairway opened into a massive cavern. Daniel's lantern revealed towering stone columns stretching upward into shadows. The walls of the cavern were covered with murals, not painted but glowing softly, as if the stone itself remembered light. The images told strange stories: humans standing beside tall, shining figures, battles in the sky, and pyramids with beams of energy rising into the heavens. Luis crossed himself and whispered, "This is not a place for men. These are not stories of gods. These are memories." Daniel stepped closer to one mural showing humans reaching upward toward a shining ship in the sky. The ship looked nothing like anything the Mayans could have imagined. It was sleek, with curves and patterns that reminded him of the symbols in the chambers above. His heart pounded. This was not myth. This was history hidden in stone. As they moved deeper into the cavern, they found skeletons scattered across the floor. Some wore pieces of old armor, others simple robes. But many of the bones were fused with strange metal fragments, like the remains of people who had been joined with machines. The sight made Miguel shiver. "These are not natural," he whispered. "They were changed." "But by what?" Daniel knelt beside one skeleton. Its skull bore a thin band of metal that had fused directly into the bone. He touched it gently. This was no ordinary death. These people were part of something, an experiment, perhaps, or a transformation. Maybe they tried to become like the ones who built this place. Luis shook his head sharply. "And it killed them. That is the truth written here. They tried, and they failed. And we are fools to follow their path." Before Daniel could answer, a sound rose from the far side of the cavern. At first it was faint, like whispers carried on the wind. But as they listened, the voices grew clearer. They spoke in a language none of them knew, yet somehow the tones felt familiar. The voices were not coming from one place but from all around, as if the cavern itself was speaking. Miguel gripped his lantern tightly. "Do you hear that? It is calling your name, Daniel." Daniel froze. He had heard it too. The whispers carried his name, spoken slowly, as though the voices had known it long before he was born. His chest tightened, but he stepped forward instead of back. "It knows we are here. It knows me. This is why we were led here." Luis pulled his arm. "No, Señor. We should leave now. The dead do not call the living unless they want company." But Daniel gently removed his arm from Luis's grip. "This is not death speaking. This is something else. Something waiting to be understood." They continued forward, following the voices until they reached the heart of the cavern. There, half buried in stone, lay something that made all of them stop in shock. A structure of metal, larger than any building, stretched across the cavern floor. Its surface shimmered faintly in the lantern light, smooth and unbroken despite its age. It was not built by hands like theirs. It was a ship. Daniel's voice was filled with awe. An ancient starship, hidden here beneath the pyramid. Miguel gasped, his eyes wide with wonder and fear. But why here? Why bury it beneath a temple? Daniel moved closer, his hands brushing against the cool surface. Not buried. Protected. The Mayans built the pyramid above it to guard the secret. They feared it, or perhaps they were told to keep it hidden until the right time. As if in answer, a section of the ship's hull flickered with faint light. The whispers grew louder, swirling around them. Daniel felt his heart race as symbols appeared on the surface of the ship, glowing with the same patterns they had seen earlier. "It is alive," Daniel whispered. "This ship is not dead. It has been sleeping." Luis pulled Miguel back. "Then we must not wake it? You saw the bones. You saw the guardians. This place is not a gift. It is a prison." But Daniel could not turn away. The ship seemed to recognize him, the lights pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. He placed his hand against the glowing symbols, and the cavern filled with a deep hum, as if the ship had taken a breath for the first time in centuries. The whispers stopped. In their place came silence, heavy and expectant. Daniel stood frozen, his palm against the alien metal, feeling warmth spread from the ship into his skin. For the first time, he was certain of one thing: the pyramid had not called just anyone. It had called him. The great cavern was silent except for the steady hum that seemed to come from the ship itself. Daniel stood before the strange vessel, his lantern light reflecting off its smooth metallic skin. The structure was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was not shaped like a boat or any human craft. Its curves were too perfect, its surface too flawless, as though it had been grown rather than built. Miguel stepped closer, staring with wide eyes. "It is a ship, Señor. But not from here. Not from Earth." Daniel nodded slowly. He ran his hand along the cool surface, and to his surprise the metal seemed to ripple faintly beneath his touch, as if recognizing him. A line of glowing symbols appeared where his palm rested. They spread outward like veins of light, racing across the hull. Luis quickly stepped back. "No, Daniel. Do not touch it. This is not for us. You will bring death upon us." But Daniel could not pull away. He felt a strange connection, a warmth flowing through his hand into his arm, filling him with energy. The glow slowed and pulsed gently, like the beat of a sleeping heart. Finally, he stepped back, breathing hard. The lights remained, faint but steady, shining softly against the dark stone of the cavern. The three men walked along the side of the vessel, following the lines of glowing symbols. They found what looked like an opening. It was shaped like a doorway, sealed but outlined with light. As Daniel raised his lantern, the door slid open without a sound. A wave of cold air spilled out, carrying the scent of age and iron. Miguel hesitated, but Daniel entered first. The corridor inside glowed faintly, the walls smooth and curved, covered with markings similar to those they had seen above. Their footsteps echoed softly as they walked. "This is not stone," Miguel whispered. "It feels alive." They passed through the corridor until it opened into a wide chamber. Strange machines lined the walls, silent but glowing faintly. In the center stood rows of tall pods, their surfaces misted over as though frozen in time. Daniel raised his lantern and gasped. Inside the pods lay figures. They were tall, their bodies slim but strong. Their skin was pale, almost silver under the mist. Metallic lines ran across their limbs, merging with flesh. Their eyes were closed, their faces calm, as though they were only sleeping. Miguel pressed close to one of the pods. "They look alive, as if they could wake any moment." Luis's face was pale. "They are not men. They are the builders of this place. The Mayans must have seen them, and that is why they built the pyramid above. To keep them hidden, to keep them locked away." Daniel placed his hand against the surface of one pod. The glass was cold, but beneath it he thought he saw a slight movement, a twitch of a finger, the faint rise and fall of a chest. His heart raced. "They are alive. They are sleeping inside their ship." At his touch, the pod glowed brighter. The mist shifted, revealing more of the figure's face. Its features were strange but not terrifying. Its eyes remained closed, but Daniel felt the weight of its presence pressing against his mind. For a moment, it was as if a thought passed between them, too quick to understand. The ship's hum grew louder. Lights flickered across the chamber, spreading through the walls. The other pods glowed faintly, their mists swirling faster. The floor shook under their feet, and dust fell from the ceiling. Luis shouted, "You are waking them. Stop, Daniel, before it is too late." Daniel pulled his hand back, and slowly the glow faded. The hum softened until it was once again a gentle vibration. The pods dimmed, returning to their quiet pulse. The silence that followed was heavy. Daniel stood still, staring at the sleeping beings. He felt awe but also a deep responsibility. This was not just a discovery of history. This was a moment that could change the future. "They have been here for centuries," Daniel said softly. "Perhaps longer. The Mayans built their pyramid above this place, but they did not destroy it. That means they respected it. Or feared it. They must have believed these beings would one day rise again." Miguel shivered. "And what if that day is today? What if we are the ones who woke them?" Daniel turned to him. "No. They are not awake yet. But they stirred because of us. The ship responded to me. That means something." Maybe it was waiting for someone who could understand it? Luis crossed his arms tightly. Or maybe it was waiting for a fool to open the door. We must leave this place before it finishes waking. Daniel looked back at the pods. The figures inside remained still, their faces calm, their bodies unmoving. Yet he could not shake the feeling that they were aware of him. The ship had responded to his touch. The beings inside had stirred. Somehow, they had recognized him. For the first time since entering the pyramid, Daniel felt not only wonder but also a question pressing on his heart. Why him? Out of all the people who might have entered, why did the ship respond to his hand, his presence? As they left the chamber, Daniel glanced back one last time. The pods glowed faintly in the distance, silent and waiting. He knew this was not the end. The ship was not only sleeping. It was watching. The three men left the sleeping chamber and stepped back into the wide corridor of the ship. Their lantern light trembled against the smooth metallic walls. Though the glowing pods had faded to silence, Daniel could not shake the weight of invisible eyes on his back. It felt as if the ship itself was alive and aware of their every step. Miguel whispered, "We should not be here. The Mayan sealed this place for a reason. We are walking where no man should." Luis nodded quickly. "We must leave at once. The air itself feels heavy. This is not a tomb. This is a prison." Daniel looked ahead. "It is more than that. It is a ship, and those inside, they are not dead. They are waiting." His voice carried both wonder and fear. As they moved deeper along the corridor, the hum of the ship grew louder. Strange lights appeared in the ceiling, flowing like rivers of energy. The walls shifted faintly, opening patterns that looked like stars. Miguel raised his lantern to see them, but before he could speak, the ground beneath them trembled. A low rumble echoed through the ship, and then came a sound like a deep breath drawn after centuries of silence. The men froze. From ahead came a faint glow, brightening slowly until it shaped itself into a figure. It was tall, taller than any of them, and its form shimmered as though made of light and stone together. The being had no face, only a mask of shifting patterns. Its body was covered in markings that pulsed like veins of fire. Miguel gasped. "A spirit. A guardian." The figure raised one arm, and the corridor filled with a voice not spoken aloud, but echoing directly in their minds. The voice was deep and steady, carrying ancient power. "You trespass on sacred ground. The sleepers must not be disturbed." Daniel stepped forward, his heart racing. "We did not come to harm. We only sought knowledge." The guardian's light flared brighter. "Knowledge is dangerous when touched by hands unworthy. Many have tried before. All have failed." Luis shouted, fear clear in his tone. "We are leaving. We do not wish to stay." But the guardian did not move aside. Its glowing eyes, if they could be called eyes, turned toward Daniel. "Yet the ship answered to you. It recognized your hand." "Why?" Daniel hesitated. He did not know. "I do not understand. I only touched it, and it awakened." The guardian's voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Perhaps the sleepers chose you. Perhaps you carry something within that they know. But if that is true, then you carry a burden." The walls shook as the guardian stepped closer. Miguel and Luis backed away, but Daniel stood still, unable to move. The figure reached out one long, glowing arm. Its light touched Daniel's forehead, and instantly his mind was filled with visions. He saw skies burning with fire, great ships battling in the stars. He saw worlds destroyed, pyramids of stone standing as beacons across the earth, built to guard what lay beneath. He saw the sleeping beings, their silver faces calm as they entered their pods, leaving their guardian behind to protect them. Then the vision faded, and Daniel fell to his knees, gasping. The guardian's voice softened. "They fled from war. They came to your world to hide, to rest. The Mayans built above them to honor and protect, but also to warn. You have awakened what was not meant to rise yet. Miguel helped Daniel to his feet. Señor, what did you see? Daniel's eyes were distant. A war, long ago. They are not conquerors. They are survivors. They sleep because they must. But one day they may rise again. Luis shook his head fiercely. Then we must seal this place once more. If they wake, the world will never be the same. The guardian raised its hand again, and the corridor brightened. The choice is not yours. The sleepers will wake when their time comes. Until then, none may disturb them. Daniel swallowed hard. Then why did you allow me to see? Why show me their past? The guardian's light flickered, almost like a sigh. Because you were chosen. Whether by fate or by mistake, the ship responded to you. When the time comes, you will stand between worlds. You will decide if the sleepers return as friends or as enemies. The words chilled Daniel, yet also filled him with a strange strength. He nodded slowly. I understand. The guardian's form began to fade, its light dissolving back into the walls. But its final words echoed long after it vanished. Remember, human. What sleeps beneath the pyramid is not dead. It waits. And when it wakes, the world will change forever. Silence returned to the corridor. The hum of the ship softened, and the walls grew dim again. Miguel held his cross tightly, whispering a prayer. Luis looked pale, almost broken by fear. Daniel, however, stood straight, though his heart pounded in his chest. He knew he had seen something few men ever would. He had touched the edge of a secret older than his people, older than history itself. And though the guardian had faded, Daniel felt its warning burn within him. The sleepers would rise again one day, and when that day came, he would have a role to play. He was no longer just an explorer searching for treasures of the past. He was part of something greater, something hidden beneath the stone and silence of the Mayan pyramid of death. The men walked back through the silent halls of the ship, their lanterns swinging and shadows bending along the curved walls. None of them spoke for a long time. The memory of the guardian's glowing figure weighed heavily on their hearts. Miguel's hands trembled as he clutched his cross. Señor Daniel, he whispered, we must seal this place. No one else should find it. If others disturb the sleepers, they may not be as merciful. Luis nodded quickly. Yes, we should return to the surface. Forget we ever saw this. Nothing good will come from digging deeper into forbidden things. Daniel walked ahead silently. He was lost in thought, replaying the guardian's words. Chosen. Burden. Between worlds. Those words echoed inside him like a warning bell. He knew he could not simply forget. Something inside the ship had connected to him, and that link could not be undone. As they reached the stone steps that led back to the tunnels above, the ground quaked suddenly. Dust rained from the ceiling. A loud crack echoed through the chamber. The ship groaned, as if shifting in its ancient slumber. Luis shouted in panic. The pyramid is collapsing. But Daniel shook his head. No. It is not the pyramid. The ship itself is stirring. The tremor grew louder, then faded into silence. When the dust settled, they noticed something new. Markings had appeared on the walls. Faint glowing symbols now stretched across the corridor, twisting like vines of light. Miguel stepped closer, his eyes wide. These are not Mayan, he said softly. These are older, far older. Daniel reached out, and the symbols brightened at his touch. The light spread down the wall, across the ceiling, and into the floor, until the whole corridor glowed faintly. Luis pulled at Daniel's arm. Stop. Do not touch anything more. Every step we take brings danger. Can you not see it? This place does not want us here. But Daniel's expression was calm. It is not anger. It is warning us. It is showing us something. The walls pulsed, and then a deep sound echoed through the chamber. It was like the slow beating of a giant heart. The men froze. Then, from the ceiling, a voice spoke, not the guardian this time, but a hollow, mechanical tone. System awake. Time not yet complete. Intrusion recorded. The voice repeated itself in a strange language first, then shifted into broken Spanish, then into English. Miguel whispered, "It knows we are here. It knows our tongue." Suddenly, the lanterns flickered and went dark. Only the glowing walls lit their way. The ship seemed alive now, humming with energy. Then, from deeper inside, a distant howl rose, a low, metallic cry that chilled the blood. Luis backed away. "We must go. I swear something else is moving in here. Not just the guardian." They hurried up the steps, but as they reached the tunnel leading back to the pyramid chamber, they found the passage blocked. Stones had fallen, sealing the way out. Miguel's voice shook. "We are trapped. The curse of the pyramid has found us." Daniel pressed his hand against the fallen stones. They were heavy, impossible to move by hand. He turned back toward the glowing ship. "We have no choice. We must go deeper. Maybe another path leads to the surface." Luis nearly collapsed. "Deeper? Into this nightmare? Señor, that is madness." But Daniel's voice was steady. "If the ship sealed us in, it means we are not meant to leave yet. The guardian said I was chosen. Perhaps this is part of it." Miguel and Luis exchanged frightened glances, but neither could argue. With no way back, they followed Daniel once more into the glowing corridors. As they walked, the air grew warmer. Strange whispers seemed to travel through the walls, not in any human language but heavy with meaning. Miguel prayed softly as they passed chambers filled with towering machines. Some stood silent like statues, while others stirred faintly, as if waking from a long sleep. At last they came to a wide hall unlike any before. In its center rose a massive stone table carved with both Mayan symbols and strange alien marks. Around it stood statues of jaguar-headed warriors holding spears of shining metal. Luis gasped. "This is no ordinary hall. This is a throne room." The three men stepped closer. As Daniel approached the table, the statue's eyes glowed. A sudden wind rushed through the chamber, though there was no opening. The ship's voice filled the room again. "Guardian system active. Curse protocol engaged." At those words, the statues moved. Their stone bodies cracked open to reveal glowing metal beneath, and one by one they stepped down from their pedestals. Their eyes burned like fire. Miguel dropped to his knees, praying louder now. Luis pulled at Daniel's sleeve, terrified. But Daniel stood firm, though his heart pounded. One of the jaguar warriors raised its spear, and the voice thundered again. "Only the chosen may pass. The rest must return to dust." The statues closed in, their steps shaking the floor. Daniel realized what the guardian had meant earlier. It was not enough to witness the sleepers past. He had to prove himself, or the pyramid's curse would destroy them all. Taking a deep breath, Daniel placed both hands on the glowing table. The alien and Mayan symbols beneath his palms lit up, spreading across the stone like fire. The statues stopped at once, their weapons frozen mid-strike. The ship's voice fell silent for a moment, then spoke again, softer this time. "Recognition confirmed. The chosen lives. The curse shall not take him." The statues lowered their spears and stepped back into stillness, returning to stone. The chamber quieted. Only Daniel's heavy breathing filled the air. Miguel and Luis stared at him in awe. "What did you do?" Miguel whispered. Daniel looked down at the glowing table. "I do not know. But it seems the curse is real. And now it knows me." He lifted his head, his eyes shining with both fear and determination. The ship had accepted him. But what price would he have to pay? The stone chamber shook as the pyramid responded to the presence of the humans. Maria, Luis, and Dr. Chen stood in awe as the walls glowed with brighter patterns, like veins of fire spreading across the ancient stone. The humming sound deepened, making the air heavy, and dust fell from the ceiling. It felt as if the pyramid itself had woken from a long sleep. Maria held her torch high and whispered, "It knows we are here." Dr. Chen adjusted his glasses, his face pale. "This is not just a tomb. This place is alive in some way." The Mayans were not only building for worship. They were protecting something. The floor beneath their feet shifted. A circular platform rose slowly in the middle of the chamber, smooth stone pushing upward with great force. When it stopped, they saw a large crystal resting on it, glowing with soft golden light. Strange lines spread out from the crystal into the walls, as if it was the heart of the entire pyramid. Luis stepped closer, his eyes wide. "So this is the secret. The source of all the traps, the energy, everything." Dr. Chen nodded. "Yes. This crystal is some kind of power core. It explains how the pyramid has remained active for centuries. And it may explain the legends of gods descending from the sky. Whoever brought this was not from Earth." As he spoke, images appeared on the walls. They shifted like living paintings, showing tall beings with shining skin and strange machines. These figures handed objects to the Mayan priests, who bowed in respect. Then the images showed the construction of the pyramid around the crystal. Maria's voice trembled. The Mayans were given this by those beings. They built the pyramid as a shield. But what were they hiding? The images changed again. This time they showed a dark figure, not like the shining beings. It was tall, with sharp edges and a shadowy form. The Mayans fought it, but their spears and arrows had no effect. The shining beings helped them seal the dark figure deep below, locking it with the power of the crystal. The chamber grew colder as the last image faded. The three explorers understood now. The pyramid was not only a monument. It was a prison. Suddenly, the golden crystal pulsed. A deep crack echoed, and a section of the floor split open. From the gap came a foul wind, carrying the smell of ancient stone and something unnatural. Maria covered her mouth. Luis gripped his bag tighter, while Dr. Chen stepped back. From the darkness below, a voice rose, faint but chilling. It was not in Spanish or English, yet somehow they understood. "So many years I have waited. Now the seal is broken." The floor shook violently, and part of the ceiling collapsed. The explorers scrambled to the side as stones crashed down. Out of the gap, a shadow began to form. It was tall, just like in the carvings, with glowing red eyes and a body that seemed to twist like smoke. Maria whispered in fear, "It is the one they sealed. It is still alive." Dr. Chen's voice was filled with urgency. "We cannot let it escape the pyramid. If it does, the world will be in danger. That crystal is the only thing holding it back." The shadow creature stretched its arms, the air around it freezing. It tried to climb out, but golden chains of light appeared, wrapping around it, pulling it back down. The crystal pulsed brighter, as if it was fighting against the darkness. Luis shouted, "It's the crystal. It still works, but it is weakening. We need to help it." Maria looked around desperately and noticed the glowing symbols on the walls. They were dim, as if losing energy. She ran to them and pressed her hand against the carvings. The symbols lit up under her touch. "Everyone, touch the walls," she shouted. Luis and Dr. Chen joined her, pressing their hands on the glowing patterns. To their surprise, the pyramid responded. The light spread faster, the humming grew stronger, and the golden chains tightened around the shadow. The creature let out a scream that shook the chamber, but it was dragged back into the darkness below. The crack in the floor slowly sealed itself. The wind stopped. The crystal dimmed but remained glowing softly. The chamber grew still again. The three explorers fell to their knees, exhausted. Sweat dripped from their faces, but relief filled their hearts. Maria looked at her friends and whispered, "We saved it. The world is safe." Dr. Chen nodded, though his voice was weak. This secret must never be forgotten. The Mayans were not worshipping death. They were guarding life. Luis wiped his forehead. Then it is our duty now. We must make sure no one comes here to disturb this place again. They climbed out of the chamber and made their way back to the surface. The morning sun shone brightly over the jungle. The pyramid stood silent behind them, looking as if nothing had happened. Maria stopped at the edge of the clearing and turned back one last time. She could feel the weight of what they had witnessed. This pyramid will remain standing for centuries, and we will carry the truth. But some truths must be protected, not shared. Together, the three walked away, leaving the pyramid behind. Deep inside, the crystal glowed quietly, guarding the world from the darkness beneath. The secret of the Mayan pyramid of death remains safe once more.